Hi there, welcome to this week's Business Growth Club show with Mahmood and Joe. We're super pleased that you've joined us today. And we're all about thinking about promotions, pricing and planning for 2022 so that you can really make the most of the year and get ahead with seasonality, even out some of those dips. And we'll be sharing some strategies about how you can start to get ready for next year. And we'll be back just after this bit of music that's coming right up now. Hi there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, I mean, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the Masters that I'm doing at Strategic Leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just ask you to start off with that.
Well, because it was the two of you, basically.
I might have pressed the wrong button, but I think the music is still brilliant, and that just showcase some of the wonderful people we've with over the years.
Yeah, that making always makes me smile every time I hear that. It never gets
Absolutely.
old. Yeah, never gets old. So great show planned. We're really pleased that you're with us. Please join in, ask us your questions, tell us what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Stick everything in the comments and we'll come back to every one of them, including if you're watching on replay. So just do hashtag replay and then we'll come back to you as well. So Mahmood, we're only a few weeks off 2022 and next week is Black Friday. So the timing's pretty good for this show, I think.
It is indeed, actually. I think when we were chatting about what else we could chat about pricing, and there's loads of it, that idea of seasonality, I think you've got 2 or 3 great footprint events coming up here. And it's not just for retail businesses, folks, in terms of that go into this. It's an American import Black Friday, but it just reinforces that there are times of the year where businesses either respond to go along with what's going on or react against it. You've got Christmas and you've also got New Year, I would say, you factor into that there as well. And I suppose what's interesting is we talked about annual pricing, didn't we? Those are just some events that happen in your business landscape there as well. So you mustn't obsess about them. So I think you're going to have a lot of companies either looking to shift surplus stock, get rid of that. It's at a time where they're going to get spikes. A lot of people just get disproportionate amounts of revenue coming at those times of the year. And some people, I think there's a I don't know if you're feeling it, Joe, a climate of some people reacting against Black Friday and deliberately going the other way instead of heavy discounting, doing something the opposite.
Yeah, I think it's the important thing is to think about what's right for your business and not just jump on something because your industry, your sector is doing it and you feel like you need to do it as well. And it's really useful to have what I call a calendar plan for the year. So, mapping out week to week, month to month, what events are happening, what opportunities there are. There might be specific things in your industry, such as a big show or, a particular thing that happens several times a year. And also think about the dips and where you might want to do some really clever and creative stuff around promotional pricing or special offers or whatever it is to really get the demand higher. It doesn't have to be pricing related, but you hear that expression a lot, don't you? From I do anyway, Mahmood. We hear from feast to famine for some businesses that it's either really, really super busy, so busy they can't keep up, or well, it's just gone really quiet. One of the reasons for that is I think that businesses aren't marketing consistently and they're not changing the positioning and the pricing and all of those things a bit more flexibly sometimes in line with demand. What do you think?
You're right there. I think there's 2 or 3 things to add to those great comments. I think, first of all, it's very difficult to find a business that has what I call flat demand, where literally each month the demand for their services or products are literally flatline across the board. So every single business industry that I've encountered over the years has a time of the year where things peak. So if you're, I don't know, let's say you sell baby clothing, it may be that you get a spike around about summertime because obviously a lot of people apparently, they conceive then and they give birth later on in the summer. It may be a situation that if you're in a funeral business, winter time maybe is a peak season for yourself. So every single business, unless you've just got a single product and commodity, we've got constant demand, you're always going to have peaks and troughs, that sort of roller coaster. So I think you need to be aware of that, and you need to identify when those peaks and troughs occur in your business landscape, and actually, as you said, price accordingly. And we come back to that old thing, don't we, Joe, about planning. You've got to look beyond a couple of months, and you've got to look ahead at least minimum 12-month horizon to identify the peaks and troughs, and then come up with your pricing policies accordingly.
Yeah, and of course, airlines, hotels, train companies, and I've done this in train companies, very good at market demand pricing. It's responsive or dynamic pricing. There are other words for it, which is, where the demand is higher, looking to maximize margin and increase pricing is one way of doing it. And then incentivizing, greater usage when the market is a bit flatter, and that, and you can sense that. So that's just one. I'm not suggesting that's right for everybody, but really what we're trying to do here is share some different ideas so that you can step back and think, actually, what might I do differently here in my business, and how can I really make the most of 2022 and get that plan together with some thinking.
100%. I think if we dive into a bit more of the granular detail there, so we've got a good picture presented about demand spikes, demand drops. You've got this idea of managing capacity as well, and I'm going to throw in this idea that you need to understand your cost base very carefully to do that. So if I take example of clients that I know that work in the hospitality sector, typically as a general rule of thumb, you may have a very slow occupancy Monday to Thursday. Not lots of people come in, occupy that space, but you still got that same level of commitment to, costs of rent, staff salaries, etc. So if you can identify, what your, cost of actually providing a meal to somebody is, cost of a drink, as long as you price above that point and you price accordingly, markedly and cleverly, you may drag extra punters into that time of the week to actually fill in the space, an extra contribution. Obviously, the balancing act here, and remember, me and Joe always said this is not a formulaic approach. It's about getting your brain thinking is you may not shift the demand. It happens in theatre companies in terms of when they've got very low occupancy in seats. You may be able to have a price promotion if you want that brings in bums on seats at those low occupancy. But you really need to have a good command of what's going on in the data under the bonnet.
Yeah, and there might be some premium offers you can introduce as well. So sometimes it's not just about the price itself, but it's about how you bundle your products and services. So, we see it every single year. We're approaching Christmas, and normally if you want to buy a bottle of perfume or aftershave or whatever it is, then, you just buy it off the shelf. But at Christmas, there are far more gifting packs. They put some body lotion in that you can't buy the rest of the year, or that you might not want to buy the rest of the year, and those sorts of things. So you can actually create some prestige premium bundles of products and services at key points too, as well as some special offer packages as well. So you can bundle things in, because it's not just necessarily one pricing or promotion per product or service. Sometimes how you put them together can create a really nice value combination without you eroding too much margin or helping you enhance it. Yeah.
100%. And I think also you tap into that idea of the consumer, your client here, that actually might say, if I buy a commodity, whether it's a printer, if I get the consumables with it, if I get everything else with that, that's fantastic. I don't have to go off and find this. If I buy something that's got the battery supplied with it and everything else, or it's gift wrap for me, that saves me the energy of having to go out and gift wrap it itself. So you're right. The idea of bundling, that idea of putting things together, and again, it's numbers aren't the only thing that drives it. It's important, but you've also got to think about the impact of what you're doing there as well.
Yeah, and the impacts of what's value to the customer. What would be some limited editions or limited offer of service packages as well. They don't all have to be physical, tangible things. So these things work just as well for products as they do as services. So limited edition, limited limited offer and those sorts of things because we can use that to drive. We know that scarcity, or the sense of scarcity, is a really big motivator for us humans, that we often want something that we think is going to run out, or that is, might be out of reach if we don't act soon. So you can, in the right way, we're talking about doing all of this ethically and with integrity and so on.
100%.
But you can actually, create a bit of scarcity as well. The thing that I see people doing that really doesn't help them is they have a price offer or special discount or something, and they keep it running like almost permanently. I'm thinking DFS sofas here. Sorry, DFS, and I might be doing you a disservice if I've got it wrong. But and then it's not special anymore, is it, Mahmood?
No, the uniqueness has gone, isn't it? If you're going to, excuse me, let's put that on silent. So if you've got that idea of scarcity, sorry folks, this is a live office here, so that was the phone. I just went, so I apologise for that. So yeah, you're right. I mean, if you've got scarcity, make it genuine. And I've seen other people that effectively do scarcity as such. Just 1 second, sorry about it. There you go. Sorry, folks, this is just a bit of an interruption. That live office running now, just to go over the phone. But yeah, right. If scarcity is genuine, it's got to be genuinely scarce. If you're going to discount, I personally speaking don't like the word discount, by the way, but because that to me conjures up negative things. But it's a term that exists. Is if you're going to say it's a limited offer, and then you keep repeating it, people are going to think, there's no genuineness behind what you're doing, and customers will react by not actually buying from you there as well. So yeah, be ethical about what you're doing, be sensible, be strategic. And I think some of the things that Joe's mentioned, I've mentioned about the types of pricing, there's so many different ways to price, whether it's dynamic, whether it's bundled, whether it's like discounting, whether it's premium, value, whatever you want to call it. These are all tools in your toolkit that are there to actually make a particular objective.
Yeah, and I think whatever pricing or promotion strategy you use, it's really important to plan your exit strategy. So how long is it going to last? When is it going to end? How are you going to communicate that it's coming, that it's here, and that it's ending as well? And of course, I'm just going to say this once and I know everybody watching knows this, but I sort of feel duty bound to say it. There are trading standards, trading standards and and other regulatory requirements that we need to be mindful of when we're communicating a pricing offer or a special offer. If it's going to have an end date, you need to say that and be really, really clear about that. So just check that what you're doing does comply, and that you're communicating in a really straightforward, honest way that's upfront with the customer. I think that's important to say.
100%. And I think also there's just another thing that's from the regulatory framework. You've got to bear in mind is consumers are very savvy these days. Clients, people. I think there's more people who are prone to say if they've had a bad experience. In an ideal universe, they talk to you first of all, but they may not. They may react by telling their friends, sharing on social media, and all the rest of it. So having a strong ethical stance can still make you money, can still make you have a prosperous business there. So don't be, how can I call it? Don't be unethical. It's probably the most polite term to use at this time of day.
Yeah, and I think I know that the people who are joining us today are dead straight in terms of integrity and behaving ethically. It's just, I think there's a lot of regulation around pricing and product description and service description that people just don't look out for. And there are regulatory requirements about how things are described and how clearly and so on, especially in small businesses and especially online businesses, actually. Having done quite a lot of work with different trading standards officers about connecting with business and communicating with business. I think, and it's our responsibility as business owners to know that and find out if we don't know. It's not the Trading Standards Office's responsibility to tell us, and it's pretty easy to find out what we need to do. So that, enough said, but it was really, really important. So I think the key thing to do is, for your business plan for next year is plot out, what are the key things that you're going to have in place. And how are you going to drive demand when you need to? How are you going to either spot when you've got, capacity challenges? Can you increase capacity, or is this something you can do to maximise the margin at those times?
I think that's good, really useful. And I think also remember, I believe it also happens in train companies that pricing sometimes is also there to manage capacity. So if
Yeah.
you feel you're going to be overstretched here, premium pricing means that you get less demand here, and that's a good way to actually manage if you've got issues like recruiting staff, getting more rolling stock, and all the rest of it. So pricing, it's not a one-stop show. It has a lot of things. And look, folks, you should be doing that anyway when you plan your landscape. You plan for your business, for your sector. Where do you identify those peaks and troughs? That's a fantastic way of looking at that, but also it's a brilliant way to build up your financial forecast as well for the next 12 months, because everything is driven fundamentally by what your demand is. That will determine your costs, that will determine your profit margins. So, that's a good thought process. Get a piece of paper and just get it there as a map, a roadmap for the year.
I couldn't agree more. And, I see so much stuff online, and people are really interested in planning out your social media calendar for 2022 and batch producing posts and content and all of that. But actually, and I think as well, I hear people say, I want to turn over X thousand, X million, whatever it is the business wants to turn over, and has no clear route map for how to get from where it is to that number. But we need to sit down and plan this and think about, okay, if I want to hit that number, how many things, how much stuff do I need to sell, and what's the sweet spot in terms of the price point of selling, that amount of things. So, and that might vary throughout the year, and it's a piece that a lot of people just don't work through.
100%. And I think what that does as well, Joe, I don't know if you find it yourself, is that just creates a lot of anxiety. That creates a lot of uncertainty about what that means in terms of the impact on your bank account, the impact on your profit margins. And when you've got that element of uncertainty and you don't know what lies ahead, it makes it very difficult to make those decisions to say, what is that point I can recruit additional personnel? What is that point I can make the investment? If I make the investment now in more staff, in more inventory, when does it come here? And once you've got that clarity, once you've got that roadmap, it's not a predictive science, by the way, folks. It's about, as Joe articulated, get your business story straight and then reflect that and translate that into a financial story as well. If you don't, I think you're going to find yourself, you're going to literally have a very anxious time ahead of you.
Yeah. And, I think it's about getting into the nuts and bolts of your business and confronting the nuts and bolts of your business, because it's nice to go and think about social media and which images and what captions we're going to write and all of that's really important, because it's customer facing, it's outward facing, but that isn't your business plan. That is not your business plan. Really, all of that stuff should only come when you've done your thinking about what you want to sell, when, and how you want to sell it, because all of that stuff is really that's the icing, that's your communication of the plan. And just lots and lots of busy people at the moment. I hear so much stuff about social media planning and all of this, where actually, are you doing your business plan? Have you got it sorted for 2022? So sorry if I'm on a bit of...
I'm 100% with you, Joe. It's a bit like having a car, don't you spend all your time polishing it, making sure it looks brilliant on the outside, but you haven't serviced it, you haven't made sure that, that it's going to be capable of actually giving you a smooth journey. So I'm 100% there with you that it's a time suck. Make sure the inner core, the inner fundamentals of your business are as solid as you can make them, that you know the direction that you're going, you know what you need, you know who's going to be on board with you. And then you can start thinking about, the social media planning that goes in conjunction with it. Question for you, Joe. Let me put you on the spot. Yeah. If you were putting together like an A team, for those of you who are probably old enough to remember the A team, of your pricing group, the group of people that would, come up with a pricing strategy, would you just have the marketing people in there, or would you involve other personnel?
No. So I think for the pricing A team would be people who are great at data. So I'd be looking at the data that I've got in terms of how much sells, how much price changes in the past have affected demand. Looking at the cost element as well, so maybe some financial input. I think it would be really important to have the sales team. So whoever is customer facing, talking to customers all the time, and on a frequent basis, connecting with customers. and knowing what's going on in the market from a customer point of view, I'd have them there as well. Marketing, sort of from a price positioning perspective, where is this in the mix? But I think there are, and if you're one person, if you're a solopreneur or a really small business, then obviously you've not got access to all of those resources, but you can find people to help you with that on a short-term basis.
Yeah.
Or that there are things you can learn. I mean, it's but really thinking through, what is this? Because actually, there are only a couple of things that are going to generate money for you. It's how many things you sell and how much for, and how much it costs you to do it. And they're the factors that it all comes down to at the end of the day. So yeah, that would be. What about you? Have I missed anything?
No, I think you need somebody who's what I call it. They call it like a data miner. So there's so much data that flows around. Data is basically useless, folks, until you convert it into something useful like information. So there's somebody who's capable of looking all the data that's generated from all your social media feeds, your websites, your transactions internally, and can get that data and can draw information from it, draw patterns, look at things. So you need a data miner. You need somebody who can convert that. It doesn't necessarily, by the way, accountants aren't necessarily best suited for that aspect of things. You need somebody who can also convert that into the financial impact and can contribute what that means. I think you're certainly right. You need somebody who's customer facing, who knows what it's like when they have those conversations with customers, that know what the value is that customers value. So that's the input into that. You need somebody who's going to make the final decision. So obviously, I think I love people making contributions, but ultimately, everyone's going to buy into that final decision there as well. And probably, if you haven't got that capacity, you can buy that in quite easily. And it's probably somebody who's going to be going outside to study what the environment is like as well. So I think pretty much that would be the team that I would choose. If it's only you, by the way, you're a small business and you don't do it, you have got an incredible amount of untapped data and information in your company anyhow. If you need to, there are people out there you can bring in on a temporary basis to help you, fashion that into a story. But you've got to understand, don't rely on just what's going on in your intuition.
I think as well, it's important to price in risk. So if you are taking on risk on behalf of your customer, or price that in, build that in. You can build in, if it's a contract, if you're selling goods or services on an extended contract basis, build in, inflationary increases and those sorts of things. And these things sound obvious, but not everybody thinks about them all the time, which is why they're worth a mention. And really think about, how you're going to communicate pricing strategy as well, and the message that you're putting across, and think about the psychology of pricing from your customer's point of view, and the story that you're telling about that, and what that's going to create. So it really depends on what business you're in. If you're supplying wholesale, for instance, and you've got to do a price increase, obviously that means that there's a knock-on effect, that there's a price increase for the retailers that the wholesaler is selling to, and so on. So really think about the context, and it's all about you being happy with with what you're charging, and the customer being happy with what they're paying at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd probably add to that, happy and being confident in what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
If you're not confident in your pricing approach there as well, it will come across, and customers probably may put a question mark over how much they trust you, how much of that is true, and it's that word integrity again. And look, folks, if this sounds overwhelming and you might be in a position where you think we do that anyway, fantastic, brilliant. If you're in a situation saying, well, we don't actually do that, we don't have the time and resources, just break it down. So even if you start with the very basics of understanding what the 12 months looks ahead. If you're a new startup business, by the way, you may not have that history, but Mr. Google, talking to your contemporaries, your professional associations can help you identify those spikes and those troughs. Find out where they are, and you really have got to understand, what you want to achieve. I've known some people deliberately price at a low price just to get market share, to sell more goods, and then they think later on they will drive the price up because they get what they call economies of scale. Some people deliberately, I think the iPad for me was a great example of that. There's always a group of people who want to have the technology as soon as it's launched, and they're happy to pay a premium for that product when it first launches. And Apple deliberately knew that was going to happen, and then several months later they dropped the price down once those first group of buyers are there. But understand your customers, understand what's going on, and don't worry if you haven't got it all in there. Just start thinking about it and start doing it.
Yeah, and the one big thing is don't price too low to win the business and then realise that actually there was some risk, there's some unforeseen circumstances, and you end up delivering business and being contracted to deliver that business at a loss or at break even and a bit too close to that a comfortable place for you. So yeah, sometimes it's better to walk away than get into that. And if you're saying, well, all our customers, they're all buy on price, if you're happy with that, and if that's how you've created your business model, that's fine. But you might want to look at how you can reposition and attract different customers if it always comes down to price, and you can see the margins getting lower and lower. This is the time then for innovation and looking at how you can add more value that the customers are happy to pay for, or maybe the different customers, you can target a different segment and they're happy to pay for, and move across into a more fruitful area. So there's quite a lot to think about here. And I think, we appreciate there's all sorts of things that we're suggesting you give some consideration for next year, but don't leave you on your own with it. So if you do have any, questions or thoughts, or how do I do this? Where do I start? Stick it in the comments, and Mahmood and I, we'll help you, we'll point you in the right direction as much as we possibly can.
So what would be your, so what about yourself then, Joe? What's your spikes, your peaks and troughs in your own business? Away from the growth.
It's always at peak. There's probably Christmas week, and I'd say probably a week around August, in August, if anything, that's a bit, but it's always, I could fill August still several times over. So it's about generating demand. So, there's always a peak. So there's probably is natural seasonality. But,
yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the other thing is always be marketing. And when I mean marketing, I don't mean taking out ads or doing, social media all the time. Marketing in its widest sense, which is about being out there, talking to people, being visible, those sorts of things. Because if you're always out there doing that, then you're always front of mind, particularly if you're out there sharing value, and then you're front of mind when somebody is looking for something that you can really help them with. So
I like that idea of that value. I think I'll just pick up a point you were saying earlier on about price. If you are competing on price all the time, by the way, folks, it tends to be because you've got nothing different or distinctive compared to somebody else, and therefore it's a model that's worked very well for Ryanair. That's what they compete on, price predominantly. That's how they got to the size they did. Michael O'Leary, to give him his credit, he's done extremely well for an airline that wasn't making a great deal of money when he took it on, and he built it up into quite something, and that's what they're competing on. Other companies, you don't do that. So you think carefully about what your offer is to your customer, and that certainly can have a big influence on your pricing approaches, he says in the plural.
Yeah, and Michael O'Leary, he did, going beyond price. He actually offers, some people really hate Ryanair. I asked them, when did you last fly with them? Have you ever flown with them? Or is it just a perception? So I think the perception is worse than the reality with Ryanair. They have a great punctuality record. They have, just before COVID, they bought quite a large number of new planes. The planes are in a pretty good state, and they also started to fly to new destinations and opened up European destinations that weren't available. So they opened up new routes and new city breaks and things like that. So Michael O'Leary has hung his hat on price, and indeed, price is the key message. Not all the flights are cheap. If you want to go and fly to Malaga at high demand, it could be sort of 300 quid one way. So it depends when you go. But there's a lot more around the proposition than that. But they're leading with price, which I think is a really interesting combination.
I think the thing that's not really probably appreciated what Michael Leary did, he leads on price, but what that means is it's going to become effective. You've got to be on top of your game on efficiencies. And a lot of the things that he introduced, big airlines like British Airways copied. So there's things like literally thinking I've got a plane in the air, as soon as it lands on the ground, the quicker I can turn it around, get it back in the air, the better I can use that asset, the more I can spend. And other airlines have copied it. So, it's about operational efficiency that can support that pricing approach.
Yeah, and how that's packaged and presented to the customer, because there are some things about Ryanair that aren't great when you travel with them, but actually a lot of it isn't that bad, and some of it is. I prefer it in some ways to some other more expensive airlines. So there we go. There we are.
What a great way to
so you might not know, I flew every week for a couple of years to Dublin from Leeds, Bradford. I got something like the 6:37, whatever it was, flight in the morning. And I was in the Dublin office by 7:30 in the morning. I arrived because it's only a 45-minute flight and it's landed. I've been backwards and forwards, and also pre-COVID backwards and forwards to Malaga as well, at least monthly. So, courtesy of, not courtesy of, because I paid, but thanks to Ryanair, really. So
Michael, if you're listening, Jo expects at least a reduction on her next ticket. Give you a plug there.
Yeah, I won't hold my breath.
So, Jo, listen, have we thought about what we're going to talk about next week, or should we keep that as a surprise till next week?
Well, because we haven't talked about it.
Oh, we haven't actually. No,
we haven't got a show next week.
Exactly, of my oversight phase, because drum roll.
Oh, because I'm attending an event next week, so and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll say it, but because I think I wasn't going to mention it, Mahmood, but since so I've been.
I have no class, people. So
I'm a finalist for a business award, and I'm super flattered and privileged and honoured and all of those things. And we've got some really, really worthy finalists in there as well. So I'm going to the event for that. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Folks, Jo says it very well. She's very classy and all the rest of it. But we're sending out positive vibes, and we want Jo to come away with the gold goblet if they have one. And we'll see you in a fortnight's time.
Yeah.
And good luck for next week, Jo.
Yeah. See you in 2 weeks. Let us know if you need anything, because we're always here. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye. Have a good one. Take care.
Hi there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about